views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to the Silver-Gaia Academy, the journey to Gaia with Dr. Brie Gibbs. We are always evolving as part of the planet. The Silver-Gaia Academy is here to help guide you on your spiritual journey. Learn about the Gaia, the Mother of Earth, and how even our words can affect the planet and the universe. Learn the true meaning of the word goddess, what it means that we are divine beings, and so much more. We are here to help the planet raise its vibration. Will you rise to the occasion? Now here's your host, Brie.
Welcome, everyone, to the Silver-Gaia Academy. This is our second show. I am so excited what we are doing with this show, bringing on master teachers, and I have Pepper Lewis with us again today for part 2 of our conversation that we had last week. And it was more of an outlining on how to find the right teacher for you. So, hi, Pepper. You ready to get started?
Hey, Brie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Actually, a lot better than last time.
I think we had, it wasn't Mercury retrograde, but we had difficulty connecting and getting everything together last time.
I know, but you know what? It's okay. It all worked out how it was supposed to. And I'm a firm believer on that. You know, the way that things are supposed to happen is going to happen.
Sure.
So the one thing I want to talk about is, you know, we have to be lighthearted in what we're doing. And we have to be at a point with us where we're responsible for our own actions and not put everything on the teachers. Do you get what I mean by that?
Yes, go on with that thought.
So, if I go and take a class, right, or a seminar, or just go listen to somebody, it's my decision whether or not I resonate with it or I don't resonate with it. It's my decision whether or not I take the information and take it true-heartedly, even though I may have reservations about it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's such a deep feeling to this for me. So for me, it's like, if I'm going to I'll take the class, I'll pay the money, and if I follow exactly what they say to do, and then I find out it was wrong, whose responsibility is it really, though?
Well, I think I think it's always our own responsibility because it was our own choice.
Right.
Is what I would answer to that. And, you know, I think what happens when I take classes anyway, and I find myself sometimes at the end of the class, I'm not discouraged or in something, dissatisfied, something. Sometimes, and maybe you'll agree, I find that I have evolved during the course of the class itself, my thoughts, my feelings, my own process has already evolved so that by the time I'm done with the class, it's not like I can toss it aside, but I am already looking to the next place of me. I've already grown. I've already assimilated a little bit. And because we've done that, we sometimes look back and say, well, I didn't need to do that, or I already knew that, or something like that.
Right.
But maybe the class acted as a catalyst that helped us grow that much faster.
Right. But what about the ones where it was not the right class? That's what I'm trying to say. You know, those. And I've taken several of them. I will be the first to admit that. I have taken some that I thought, hey, this sounds really great. And then I come out a little disappointed, but then I have to realize I made that decision.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to get at right now. It's not, we don't want to blame, you know, all the teachers out there. All, you know, we're all here for different reasons. And I know that I had to take responsibility for my action of my thoughts coming out of the class. Yes, boy, did I get enlightened in some of the classes, right? And I did. And then I realized, yes, I did come out with some things that were true, but were they for me? And so I had to make those different distinguish between them, to have discernment, I should say.
Okay.
And it worked out great, though. I just don't want to bash all the teachers. That was a big thing I wanted not to do today, because there are things out there that we need to take responsibility for.
Sure, absolutely.
So over the years, you and I have been privileged to work with some amazing teachers. And what would be something that you would recommend for someone that is looking for a new start of enlightenment? The new earth is here. What would you recommend for them?
Well, I would always like to stay with whatever are the biggest questions that we are asking and see how to begin to answer that. So if the biggest question is, who am I? Then to look there to see what can we know about that question. Why am I here? Why does life matter? Does God exist? So whatever the questions that are truest for us, or the ones that we think if we had that answer, we could progress more quickly, we could sleep better at night, anything like that. I suppose that's the bottom line. What would make me feel good about myself and sleep well at night? Mm-hmm. And then I would look into what teachers or teachings might support that, whether it comes from science or religion or healing traditions or non-traditional places.
Right. No, I agree with that. There is a responsibility also of the teachers that we have to look at. And when we look at their responsibilities, is it for us to take on their responsibilities? I don't think so. Do you get what I mean by that?
No, go ahead. Tell me what you mean by take on.
Okay, so sometimes myself, I'm guilty of it. I have taken emotionally taken things on that was not my responsibility in a class, right? Where I'm thinking, oh, you shouldn't have said that. I'm thinking, right? How can I help the other person? So sometimes you just take that emotionally on. I don't know any other way to explain it. I was hoping you had a way to explain it.
I don't in the moment. I think I have a clue as to what you're describing. We all have, that's just perfect because we all have such a different experience of
right.
what it's like either to be in classes or with other people. And, so I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. And all of that is changing so much now too. And we're doing so many things online as well. Right. I remember teaching some classes and I would know whether to go on with a subject or stay with what I was sharing. I'd look around the room and, you kind of look, does everyone look like they're getting it? Is it that you see that look of puzzlement on everyone's face? I'm bored. I need a break. I need a bathroom. I need food. You can kind of pick up all of that.
Right. And that's what I'm right. And that's what I'm kind of
do that.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about right there. Because I've sat next to some students as I was one, and I'm going, oh, I wish I could help her. And this isn't my class to help her. You get what I mean? And that's what I mean, taking on that energy to try to help. Mm-hmm. As an empath, sometimes we take things on we shouldn't be taking on. And luckily I've learned to control that. But, there's just times that you just want to just help somebody. But then there's times that you can't help them and we have to let them go.
Yes, and I think those are the times where all of the different forms of compassion that we have learned and learned in all of the ways matter the most. Does compassion in that moment be speaking up, or is it being silent, or is it saying, I'll be here next week when they're in a different mood, or I happen to run into them in a different class and see where their journey has taken them. Right. All of the forms of compassion that express themselves in a different way, and that's where it comes in the most, knowing when to speak and when not to.
I'm going, okay, I'm still not going to put my foot in my mouth today. Okay, so we only have a couple more minutes on this one. This is something I wanted to just lightly touch on. But what would be the best way for our listeners to be able to find the right teacher for them?
Well, I would begin with how strongly aligned we are with our beliefs. So if we have strong fundamental beliefs, we would want a teacher that supports those beliefs because we want to learn. We don't want to continually be challenged by a teacher.
Right.
We want to learn. But we want to learn from someone we feel that we can learn from. So without choosing someone who believes all the things that we do so that we can't grow at all, someone
right.
who is aligned with our principal truths, our way of learning, our traditions, our cultural understandings, or anything like that, I would also seek someone who I trusted. You know, one of my great teachers said to me that we begin by wanting not to be deceived. We want to know the truth, but it's enough at the beginning just to know that we're not being deceived, and part of that is knowing that we're not deceiving ourselves.
Oh, so true on that one. So true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So that's a good teacher. And then truths evolve. They evolve as we evolve. We start out with smaller truths and we add to them because we don't always need to get shocked into awakening. We can talk about this after the break if you like, but exploring things like non-duality, and you all of a sudden blast someone and say, you know what, there is no you. You know, you don't really exist because you're a part of everything. And so that means that you're not really here. Or, you know, there are ways to understand non-duality without telling someone you don't exist and you've never existed. So you need to get over that, you know. So that's where it comes in importance, you know, choosing a teacher and a teaching that you can learn from.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that because we're kind of such as a collective. And at least that's my opinion about that. And, for them to understand. So, everything. So, hey, I'll tell you what, let's talk more about this when we come back from our break. How's that sound?
Great.
Okay, we'll be right back with more Pepper Lewis and the Silver-Gaia Academy.
Get ready to experience Truth Talk Radio with host Deb Acker. Tune in to Truth Talk Radio each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests.
Tune in to the Angels and Answers Psychic Radio Show with clairvoyants Artie Hoffman and Sky Siegel every Thursday for a 2-hour show, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Transformation Talk Radio. Artie and Sky deliver spiritual and motivational messages with passion and a sense of humor. Call in 800-930-2819 for live and on-air readings. Visit artiehoffman.com and skyofangels.com.
How would you like increased health and vitality? How would you like to avoid the onset of disease as well as slow the aging process? This is all possible through a simple, safe, and natural process. Every day we are either moving toward wellness or away from wellness.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. I'd like to be your partner in achieving optimal health. Contact me now at maryjanemack.com or call 425-392-0659. Visit maryjanemack.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
Beyond being this amazing neurologist, inventor, author, Dr. Dan Cohen has been called to look at technology and look at personal and spiritual development and merge these together. This technology uses the healing and psychospiritual effects of synchronized sounds, vibrations, electromagnetic fields, and how that interacts with us in our nervous system in what we're calling the Soul Tech chair.
The Soul Tech Lounge induces profound levels of relaxation that transition over time into deep meditative states. The synchronized sound, vibration, and magnetic field induce these states. The subject doesn't have to work at it.
To learn more, go to soltechwellbeing.com. That's SOLTEC Wellbeing.
Welcome back, everyone. So, Pepper, we were talking about non-duality.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. And what you think about that.
It's a little subject. It's just a little
tiny
little
just a
subject.
little one.
Well, non-duality is the teaching itself is what is most associated with Vedanta. And Vedanta is associated with Hinduism, but it's really not. It really is its own thing. But it grew up thousands of years ago within that culture. And non-duality is a subject that has not caught on in the West. It is now, maybe now more science is kind of helping that a little bit. But it's never been a particularly popular subject in the West because we have been more associated with traditional religions that involve deities and that involve the hereafter, that involve being good or moral people now so that we earn a reward later. That's been many of our traditions here, Christianity, Judaism, a lot of them. And in the East, non-duality of we are here now and we are everything because we are either pure thought or pure energy. We are undivided only in that way. And so there is there's a lot less expression of one God or a future God. So it's an easier concept in the East. But basically what it says is that the only things that are real are those things, items, thoughts that are permanent and unchanging. That nothing else is real, that everything else is an object of our subjective mind. And so if our subjective mind views everything, whether it's thought or trees or a house or another person as an object, and then we look back at ourselves and see that in some ways we only have awareness of that in our mind, then we must also be that, which means there cannot really be two things that exist. There's only one. So it's not really a way of reducing everything to oneness. It's more of a way of expressing that we are inseparable from whether it's our thoughts or our creations or other people. So it's a unity kind of a consciousness. So kind of like and so we look at ourselves in that one but not two, two but not one kind of way. We exist as ourselves and we exist as an experience of everything else. So that's it's a big concept, but the examples that are used in teaching it children almost really relate to, because you can say, well, I'm seeing someone walk a dog across the street. But if I get really close, I'm seeing just the dog. I no longer see the person. If I get closer than that, I'm seeing fur. I'm not even seeing the dog. If I get closer to that, maybe I'll hear the bark, but I won't see the dog anymore. So our experience of what dog or person walking dog keeps changing as we either go, microscopically in or telescope out. So it's never really the same concept of dog. And so if we apply that to everything, including our thoughts or aging or anything, we begin to see that no subject is really what we thought it was, or can't be described in that concrete way that we would like things to be.
I agree with that. Why is it so hard for the West to accept this over here?
Well, I think part of the way that it was brought to this country or something years ago as well, in some kind of a basic package kind of a way as well, it pushed on the part of us that made it seem like, well, who am I then? Or why do I matter? If we're all just one and we're all the same thing, then why does who I am or what I do even matter? And as a culture, we didn't really want to wrestle with that concept. In fact, as I study different things, one of the, to answer your question, one of the things that I read recently, one of the reasons why maybe we did not embrace it a long time ago, was that our culture, I'll say all of the West, I'm not saying just the U.S. here, but the Western culture was rising and growing in how the Industrial Revolution, how we came to embrace materialism, which later became consumerism. So materialism meaning just that we were able to produce so many materials, wood and lumber and steel and electricity and harnessing the power of water and energy. And so all of that being the material world, which then later translated into look at all we can make and all we can have and that life can be easier. All of that pushed in on this thought that maybe it doesn't all matter at a time where we very much wanted to matter as individual creators and inventors and discoverers of a new world. So in essence, it just arrived. It was wrong timing, really. Wrong timing, bad timing.
Right. Wow.
And now that we're at this place in our world where we all need things, we all need a certain way of life, but again, especially here in the West, we have more than what our brothers and sisters do in many, many other countries. And so some of the things that we think are needs are actually luxuries in other countries. And we're getting to the point where we realize that, we recognize that. So we're getting tired of the materialism, consumerism that we created. And so now that we've gotten saturated with it, we're sort of ready to look at some of these other philosophies and maybe embrace them. So those are actually some things that I read in an article recently, and I did not object to them.
No, I don't object to that at all. I know that in the comfort zone, right? Some of us will go shopping, right? And to try to comfort us instead of going within us. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow. It's kind of sad,
Well, we look for we're trying to distract ourselves in some way, and it's common. That's common in any country. We do, as you say, a lot of shopping in this country to distract ourselves from other thoughts or whatever else. In the one of my Buddhist teachers, there's a certain there's some words that are recited before we do meditation at times, and one of them is a paragraph that I've always loved, and if I had it in front of me here, I would read it to you verbatim, but it basically says that we will never find the ultimate source of truth or happiness in anything that is external, be it relationships, money, success, or luxury, or, and it goes through a list of very basic items and, fame and fortune, it lists, some of those very specific ones. And if we think about it, it's really true. Those are things that give us pleasure, and pleasure is temporary.
Correct.
And happiness is generally temporary, because what makes us happy in one moment is challenging the next. We buy a home and we're excited about it, and then we see that we have to pay for it to afford it or fix it up or different things. We, find a perfect mate or relationship, and then we find that maintaining a relationship in balance and truth and all those things is also work. And so the ultimate happiness is what this is relating to, can only be found by recognizing those truths within us that are also true for everyone. And,
Yeah, you know what? We're going to have to take a break here in a minute. And I want to come back and talk more about this, because I know a lot of us look for the instant gratification. And I know that I have had to look inside of me to find out what. So I want to talk more about this when we come back. So we'll be back more with the Silver Gaia Academy on TTR.
I had a way then, losing it all on my own. I had a heart then, but the queen has been...
Hi, this is Leslie Fontaine. Have you ever tried to just shift your present moment experience? Do it now. Just move your energy in a direction and watch what happens. Often we panic at the blocks that come up and we just stop. But today, try not to do that. Continue from your heart or solar plexus to shift in that new direction, whether it's in the middle of an argument, in the middle of some depression you're feeling, or some discouragement. What happens for you as you do that? The opportunities are amazing. Just hold that space. If you're ready to shift into your best life, visit me at lesliefontaine.com. And let's talk about unfolding all that you want to be, do, and have. You'll find sessions, classes, audio products, all to help remove the blocks and move you into your potential. And listen to my show, Sheer Alchemy, on Transformation Talk Radio, Wednesdays at 10 Pacific and 1 Eastern.
Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. This is Talk Radio to Thrive By. I'm telling you, I got to pinch myself some days, because when each of us gets called to do something that we so not thought was in our wheelhouse to do for a purpose that's so much greater than us, we get to show up and shine.
If you would like to show up and shine on the Dr. Pat Show as a co-host or sponsor, send us an email to inspire@thedrpatshow.com.
Dr. Brie Gibbs is a fourth-generation high priestess with the knowledge to raise your vibration in conscious creation. Offering a wide variety of services from goddess light and shamanic healing seminars to private reading sessions, Brie works with you so you too can stand in your own power. Isn't it about time you took your life into your own hands? For more information about Brie's services and products, visit silver-gaia.net. That's silver-gaia.net.
Sky Siegel co-hosts one of today's most popular psychic shows, Angels and Answers, with Artie Hoffman, as she communicates healing messages from the spirit world. These messages can be astounding, enlightening, and life-changing. Born with the God-given talent of inner guidance and the amazing ability to heal, Sky has healed thousands of people. Schedule a reading with Sky now. Call 908-500-1474 and visit skyofangels.com.
Tune in to The Truth is Funny with Colette Steffen each Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This hit show will have you thinking outside the box and riding the wave of infinite potential. Join Colette on the Higher Self Network, inspiring listeners to shine their brilliance and ensure success while roaring with laughter as they recognize the humor of the giant cosmic joke. Visit thetruthисfunny.com.
I had a way then, losing it all on my own. I had a heart then, but the queen has been overthrown.
Welcome back, everyone. So, Pepper, we were talking about duality, the non-duality. Let's finish up on that. That's just amazing.
Well, I think it is a helpful approach to life that we can apply in almost every instance, if possible. If I'm upset at someone else and I want to blame them and I want to say it's your fault that I'm feeling this way, non-duality in some way can answer that by saying that I am not separate from this person or this thought, that we both or as one created this thought that we are now sharing. And it, in some ways that it doesn't just bring it back to us. It sort of just helps the question in its own way. It dissolves it. It breaks it up. So it doesn't get as concrete. And I'm not saying that this beautiful subject of non-duality or Vedanta can be reduced to, how not to have an upset in your day. But it's such a big thing that it can be applied to everything, and there isn't anywhere that it doesn't work. And that's some of the things that I look for and the things that I study. Can what I am learning be applied in a very large way? Is it something that just seems to belong to this moment? Is it trendy? Is it a popularized thought? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? How can I use this or learn from this? And we can apply that to our conversation of earlier of teachers and teachings.
Right. And so you just kind of segued into the instant gratification, and we want to get back to that. So on the instant gratification, learning right away, embracing, how can we help each other every day to realize that instant gratification is not the answer sometimes?
Well, I think if we recognize what part of us is being gratified, if I have a great cup of coffee in the morning, I am definitely experiencing pleasure from that. And, if I didn't have a cup of coffee, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. That's another subject. But using that as a conversation tool here, what is gratified in the moment is that feeling of, the warm taste, the sugary, the boldness, whatever it is, it's bringing pleasure and gratification to that moment. And the bigger life around my life does not revolve around a cup of coffee. And so I think where what we can notice about gratification is its very temporary nature, more so when we talk about gratification, more so than anything else. We can think of ourselves as babies or toddlers, screaming for the one thing that fell out of our hand or something. As soon as you give that to the baby, they're quiet for a few minutes. That's instant gratification, but it only relies upon that instant. It's even probably less than temporary happiness.
I had somebody that gave me a book one time, and I was actually in a medical store looking for something, and she walked up to me. She goes, "You really need this book." And she's the owner of a store here in Tacoma, Washington, and she doesn't remember to this day she gave me the book. It was the Book of Enoch, right? And it's a very thick book, right? It's not a little tiny book. And I'm going, wow, after the amount of time it took me to read it, I keep reading it, it's very big. And I'm going, even though it wasn't instant gratification, it's helped me have gratitude through the years with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just a book does that. And, it wasn't needed. It was needed. I needed it instead of a crystal, right? And, but she just recommended it. And it was like, wow, the gratitude I had for that. And there wasn't instant gratification, but it's taken me through a few years of gratitude.
Okay.
And so that's why sometimes I want to tell people, read when you're reading a book. Sometimes it takes you to read it over and over a couple of times to get the messages. So don't just stop by reading it one time, and you're getting that instant gratification in a long way. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Especially when it comes to books. I'm glad you said that. I think I took a class a few years ago where they used a certain book that I liked. It was interesting. It was all right. They used it as a kind of a textbook. And a few years later, I wanted to take the same class because I missed some of them. And they had the same book that they were using. And some part of me said, oh, they have other books on that subject out now. I wonder why she chose the same one. And so I thought, well, I'll try and read it again as is what they say in Zen. We say beginner's mind, innocent mind, beginner's mind. So I'll be very open and read it in that way, in that spirit. And I read a completely different book than what I had read the first time. Different sentences and thoughts spoke to me in ways that it didn't the first time, or completely different segments of the book. And I relate to it completely different because I had become different over those couple of years. So if I became different, the book became different. We could say it's the same book with the same words in it, but it wasn't. For me, the book had changed, and I had changed.
Live radio from home. My dogs are barking. But no, I understand that. It's like reading the book that I read, right? I'm so sorry, listeners. But I have a family, and they're my dogs. Anyway, so here's the thing: is reading those books sometimes can help in more ways than one. Even though we may see it as one way, the next time we see it in other ways. And there was one that I had for like 5-6 years, right? And I was reading about the lineage of some different goddesses that had walked the earth one time, right? And I saw one that I never even saw in that book, and I read that book 3-4 times. Isn't it crazy? And you can find that out. It was just something that I needed to know a few years ago. And so, that's the one thing is, and when you're taking a class, sometimes if it doesn't resonate with you the first time, maybe you need to take it again.
Yes, and there are times when that's appropriate. One of the ways to know that, I think, is if you still really resonate with the teacher, then the class will more than likely still make sense to you as well. But if one or two of those things have changed, so if you're not as interested in the subject any longer, and that teacher is not as much to your liking, then chances are a second time won't change it. I would say the odds are a lot less that it won't, but it can work the other way around. In the case that I'm describing, it was a really great teacher, and I had been away for some time in a different city. So to be able to be near that teacher again was a great privilege. One of the things someone just said to me yesterday, as a matter of fact, we were talking about the differences also between Eastern and Western spirituality, and they said that devotion is so, for us here in the West, that devotion is much harder than compassion because we have such big ideas of egos and individuality in the West.
Right. No.
That, the idea of devotion for a teacher, we get into that guru kind of thing, and we're thinking that it's the same as giving our power away to someone or something, whereas in the East they see it as a true a sincerity, a humbleness, a way to accord respect, a way to say to the universe that we are ready to learn and wanting and deserving of being taught. So it has a complete different connotation in the East than here, where we are really the constant struggle in some ways to maintain our autonomy, our individuality, to show people how far we've come, how much we've learned, what we let go of, all of that. It's just a different culture.
Very true. Very true on that one. You had brought up the ego for here a minute ago, and I'm so about releasing the ego, moving it out of the mind, moving it out of the body at times. And on the guru part that you brought up, in this area, they look at it different than back in the Eastern world. Mm-hmm. And I'm like going, there's got to be a way that we can get people to understand what guru really means. It is not of ego base.
No,
and it's humble. It's humble.
Sure.
It's so.
The word guru simply means teacher, or elevated teacher, or venerated teacher. It does not mean superpower. It does not mean all-knowing. It does not mean enlightened, evolved, or better than you. So it doesn't mean any of those things. But here in the West, we've kind of twisted around a few of those words as well from our own experiences as well. And so some of that is that, redefining some of these words, or easing making a little bit more space, a little bit, not so many tight boundaries around them. Maybe we've all had people in our life that in some ways, there's people that have made such a difference in my life that you would do anything for them. If they called, you'd be there. And It isn't any different than that. If someone, has made that difference in your life, you've been your teacher, your mentor, your guide, a favorite teacher when you were in school, someone you went to when when you and your parents didn't get along as a kid, a safe haven to go to. And all of these people have in some ways given so much, earned a special place in our hearts. And that can also be called a guru, a mentor, a teacher. Which, and the word guru makes like a full circle, in essence, if we can see the symbols for it as they're expressed in the East as well. Again, here in the West, we're more comfortable with linear lines. Here's the front of the line, that's the back of the line. Here's the top, that's the bottom. So we see things much more in a hierarchy that way than this full circle that continues to, spiral and follow itself.
That's very true. Well, we need to take another break, and we'll be back more with Silver-Gaia Academy and Pepper Lewis. See if you miss.
Who wants to be right as the rain is better when something is wrong? You get excitement in your bones, and everything you do's a game. When night comes in your
Tune in to Mainstream Metaphysics Radio to harness your connection with the universe to effect change for optimal success and happiness. Named one of the country's top psychics, Eve now brings her insights and gifts to this weekly hit call-in show, joined by visionaries, leaders, and gifted others, but mostly you. Jot it down, Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Get your monthly dose of self-awareness and mindfulness. Learn spiritual regeneration with visionary leader David Carshare in Becoming a Sun Radio, emotional and spiritual intelligence for a happy, fulfilling life. Explore the unknown regions of the emotional experience and set them free with David. Tune in once a month to Becoming a Sun Radio with David Carshare on The Dr. Pat Show and Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit davidcarshare.com today.
Are you feeling stagnant or blocked in your love life, career, health, or finances? Experiencing difficulty focusing or setting and achieving goals? Tune in to Spiritual Diagnostics Radio with psychic visionary healers Carol Dorian and Suzanne Evans. Discover the cause and effect of unwanted patterns in life. Tune in every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit spiritualdeed.com.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
You can now join Dr. Brie Gibbs and the Silver-Gaia Academy for an all-new inspirational and educational show. the second and fourth Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Join Brie and master teachers on a journey to Gaia. We are always evolving as individuals and the planet. The Silver Gaia Academy is here to help guide and teach you how to raise your spiritual vibration. Will you rise to the occasion?
How would you like to release your stress and let go of your anxiety, fear, depression, or even physical pain? How would you like to feel more relaxed, more confident, and experience more success in all areas of your life? Dave Dodge from Stress Buster Radio has a number of cutting-edge methods that will help you do just that. For more information on how Dave can help you release stress, visit StressBusterRadio.com. Skype and phone sessions available.
Who wants to be riding the high when you just crumble back on down? You give up everything you are and even then you don't get a
All right. That was an exciting segment, Pepper, huh? Dogs barking. I mean, talk about the holidays and a Monday, right?
Well, we are learning to be inclusive, to exclude nothing, to be allowing, all of these things. And so we have to include the things that go well with the things that don't go quite as we had planned.
Well, yeah, and what? It's 12/12. Tomorrow's the full moon. I mean, you know, everything's happening all at once, and it's a Monday. It's a good day. So back to instant gratification. You know, sometimes we look for things in other people that's going to...
There you go.
Instant gratification right now would be some duct tape on a dog's mouth. All right. So, but sometimes we look for that instant gratification that is good for us once in a while, whether it be a cup of tea, so we can sit down and get ready for meditation. There's different forms of instant gratification that we don't talk about. Do you get what I mean by that?
Well, not exactly, so go on.
Okay, so I have a cup of tea that I'm sitting right here with, right? And to me, that's an instant gratification where it's helping me for right now, right? To be able to talk, if I get a dry throat, whatever, right? But also the type of tea I have is also good for the body. So it is a form of instant gratification, but yet it's still helping my body. So things like that is good. But it will be in the long run, as I keep drinking this certain tea I'm drinking, in the long run is a gratification for my mind, spirit, soul, and body. So all four parts of the body this tea I'm drinking is for.
Okay.
And so sometimes that instant gratification right there for that is a good thing. The one thing that I do want to say very much so is monitor yourselves with what you're doing on instant gratification, and that we do not blame others for our mistakes. Sometimes we do the blame game, and that is so not right. We have to be responsible and monitor what we're doing. What do you think about that, Pepper?
Well, I think it's definitely an area that we can all learn and grow from. I find for myself, and I can say, you know, I can sit here with you and tell you how much I've evolved from, you know, when I was in my 20s, or, you know, from before I overcame, you know, having this difficulty relating to my parents years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are triggers in us, and when those triggers become activated, we could say out comes the 8-year-old or the 17-year-old or the one that wasn't heard or acknowledged or something. And then that's, you know, when the blame game. I'm this way because I didn't get this. I'm this way because you didn't do that. And so then it shifts that responsibility from here over there. It might not be over to you, but it's still over there. It's not with me. And
right.
So I could say that I have gotten to the point where I'm always able to do that, and that was certainly not at all, because when the right triggers come up, they get activated. So I think that the most important thing is how soon we can recover from that when we do go there. How soon we can come back and say, you know, I don't think it was that person or that situation or whatever that's making me feel this way. I think it was my reactivity from, you know, whatever happened all these years ago. Then I can look at that and say, and that's no longer true. It was so then, it's not so now. So I can maybe let go of that and move on. And then the worst thing we can do is then to become feeling guilty about it, because then we just heap that onto ourselves, and it takes that much longer to go away, and then we really are reactivating an old wound or an injury or something like that.
Right. No, I agree with that. The one thing that I think about is when that old wound gets reactivated or opened, how can we close that and heal it again?
Well, the techniques that I use come from Buddhism again. So I think they call them the 4 R's or something, and I probably won't say them exactly right here now as well. But the first one is to recognize what is happening, and usually when we recognize what is happening, we at least stop the train from going down, that runaway train that's in our minds. And so recognizing what is happening. And, you know, a word that, again, that I'm translating here from the Tibetan, it has a little bit, it sounds like our word repent, but it's not really in that way that we use it here within a religious concept. So it's more to recognize the uselessness of having gone in that direction. So again, we are bringing it closer to home again. And then another word that's not exactly the way we're using them, but a close association to that is remorse, meaning if I had it to do over again, I would not like to know that I would do that in the same way again. So it's saying I can't take those words back, but I can again bring it back here. I would, in my next moment, not choose to respond in that way. And then the last thing is then to, if there's something that you can do to compensate for that error in your moment. If saying I'm sorry is a good idea, if doing a nice favor for someone makes a difference, it's to do whatever it can, which in essence is bringing balance or equilibrium to the situation again. So those are the ways that are taught within Buddhism. And another interesting difference between East and West is that in the East they do not understand and are not raised in that way that we call guilt. So there really isn't guilty for your previous actions. There is a reconsideration for how to move forward more skillfully, which is a lot more useful and something that we can also learn from a lot.
No, I understand that one. Years ago, I was involved in Buddhism, and it really helped me enlighten and soften a lot of things about me. And a lot of people don't understand that. I try to figure out why.
True. Because, again, as how some of those teachings arrived here and were translated. So in Buddhism, and specifically in Tibetan Buddhism, which is the one that I am most familiar with, there are 100 different ways of saying remorse, for instance, that are applicable in different ways. But here you hear me describing to you something remorse and saying, oh, but we don't use it in the same way, and it comes from a different word. And I'm already backtracking as I'm trying to describe this. So when Buddhism was brought here to the West as well, it was taught in a way that it's all about human suffering and releasing. It's either you're either suffering or you're not suffering. So it was all, the teachings were centered around that. And in some ways, that's because the first teachers that came here saw such a need here in the West for us to recognize ourselves in the predicament that we are in, the predicament of not knowing or understanding ourselves. So they sort of began that way. And also, a lot of, we understand that Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, if you want to call it a religion, or a philosophy, depending on how you relate to it. But yet we see all these different statues and icons of the Buddha in a variety of poses. And so it looks like it's theistic, but it's not.
Right. So, Pepper, you know what? We're going to have to get off the air here. We need to wrap it up. Maybe we can talk about this next time. So, Pepper Lewis is on the second Monday of every month on Silver Gaia Academy. So, we'll see you again on the 26th of this month. And I'll see you again, Pepper, on the 2nd of next month.
See you soon, and happy holidays to you and everyone.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good day, and we'll see you guys soon.
You've been listening to the Silver Gaia Academy, the journey to Gaia with Dr. Brie Gibbs. Teachings that reach far beyond our Earth dimension and raise the spiritual vibration of the planet. Tune in live every second and fourth Monday to Brie and master teachers who have dedicated their lives to these teachings. For more information about the Silver Gaia Academy and Brie Gibbs, visit silvergaia.net.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.